Egyptian fractions. What is an Egyptian fraction? An Egyptian fraction is a sum of many rational numbers with the numerator constantly being 1 regardless of the denominator. Ancient Egypt. A country in Africa is well known for its magnificent landmark, the ancient pyramids, which have one-of-a-kind works of handmade art carved into the limestone. Historians split ancient Egypt into 3 primary eras: the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. There are primary sources of information regarding the features of Egyptian culture, which are Greek written writings, the Bible and Jewish holy works, and significant Egyptian-related documents, inscriptions, and artifacts. Islam and Coptic Christianity are 2 of the most widely practiced religions in the world, and Egypt is well recognized for hosting both. These 2 faiths share a common language, history, race, culture, and sense of national identity. As a result, Egypt has a diverse variety of sacred buildings, including mosques and churches, where adherents can go to worship their religion. Temples were built in Egypt as a way to reflect their profound belief in the afterlife and to pay reverence to their pagan deities. Ancient Egyptians had to deal with environmental challenges, including tough farming and annual flooding. Additionally, Egypt is currently dealing with issues including a rapidly growing population, extreme poverty, a larger young labour force, a water crisis in the Nile River, and risks to food security brought on by climate change. The Egyptians developed their system of division and calculation for rational numbers around the year 2000 BC. They do not view fractions as we currently do, rather they view them as if there is just one break-even section rather than several breaks. Despite the reasoning behind using this method of fraction completion, it was necessary since it would forbid repeated phrases. Students can further test the understanding of the fractions through this since it appears to them in several methods to express the same number as a fraction. Egyptians were only obliged to deal with fractions regardless of the problem, since they had a practical approach to mathematics. Even though they could only trade in fractions, employing this mathematics technique would be extremely challenging. They were limited to only solve mathematical problems involving multiplication and division that just required addition, which made the procedure of working out an equation a little simpler. Egyptians would create lots of tables to look up answers to problems due to the difficulty of calculating and working with Egyptian fractions. These fractions would lead to an unfair distribution, as having a unit fraction would represent a different amount compared to the other fraction in the equation. An example of a mathematics problem is called the Muller's horse. In this mathematics problem, not only is it extensive skill of problem solving is required, but it also needs to ensure that the solvers dividing the shares as equal as possible due to the almost impossibility of equally dividing unit fractions amongst people. It can be exhibited that due to the widespread usage of fractions in modern culture, Egyptian fractions have evolved over time. Egyptian fractions were difficult to understand and solve since the numerators were always 1 and the denominators varied. But in today's society, we use fractions differently, and there are a variety of processes that must be taken into consideration. Finding the lowest common denominator and using it to make sure that all the denominators in the equation are the same makes solving the equation an easy task. The Egyptian triangle and its applications to the building of structures and masonry demonstrate how Egypt's mathematics are still relevant today. Along with other geometrical shapes, the triangle is used by Egyptian architects. Since calculators were created to calculate mathematical issues from fractions, Egyptians wouldn't need to employ unit fractions as frequently as they did before the emergence of technology. Egypt provided the oldest geometric records, which subsequently travelled to Greece and transferred their expertise there. Their method of multiplying and dividing computations evolved through time to be more computation-friendly, doubling numbers, producing greater fractions, and using more challenging equations than we use today. Even though Egyptian fractions are not well known in the modern culture, we may still grasp their history, apply our knowledge, and contrast them with the fractions we use today. Due to the current lack of knowledge and familiarity, it would be challenging to compute the various size slices using Egyptian fractions, but it fosters a feeling of fairness when splitting something that doesn't need to be excessively divided in this case. Thank you.